at sunwarrior.com. That's sunwarrior.com.
Did you know there are over 3,000 kinds of snakes? And most, being shy, pose no threat to humans. But they are still feared and killed, even for frivolous fashion. In his poem Snake, D.H. Lawrence marvels at a snake drinking from a water trough. He succumbs to irrational fear and impulsively throws a log at the very animal he admired moments before. He writes, "And immediately I regretted it. I thought how paltry, how vulgar, what a mean act. I despised myself and the voices of my accursed human education, and I wished he would come back, my snake, for he seemed to me again like a king in exile, uncrowned in the underworld." This is Ingrid Newkirk with Peter, reminding us it's easy to be kind by choosing fake snake over real skin for belts, bags, and shoes.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet.
I love this song. I've got sunshine in my pocket. I'm so excited. Everyone, welcome back to One Life Radio. This is Bernadette with Diamond Gray. I've got Autumn Connolly in studio with me and my very special guest today, Dr. Dixon Tom. He is one of the co-founders and medical directors of the American Center for Biological Medicine. He has over 40 years of experience as a clinician and over 20 years as a medical professor. He lectures extensively throughout North America and has been teaching doctors, students, and the lay public on proven medical principles and business skills for over 35 years. Dr. Tom was the former Dean of Naturopathic Medicine at National University of Naturopathic Medicine and a full-time professor. In 2009, he received the prestigious VIS Award from the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians for his commitment to the VIS, or Healing Powers of Nature. He is the author of the book that I hold in my hand proudly, Bioregulatory Medicine, an innovative, holistic approach to self-healing. Such an honor to have you on the show, Dr. Tom. Welcome to One Life Radio.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm fascinated and just absolutely devouring this book, and I hope that everyone out there listening will get a copy because it's full of so much incredible information. So let's start with this. What is bioregulatory medicine, and how did it become?
Bioregulatory medicine is a term that we use for the style of medicine that we practice. It's always been. It's interesting. How did it become? It's always been really the type of medicine that it's the allopathic, more modern type medicine that is the deviant, and even though bioregulatory is considered the alternative. Mm-hmm. So the biggest aspect of this is, our focus is really not on a patient's symptoms, and so. Typically you go to the doctor and you end up with some type of a diagnosis, and whether you have a sore throat or an ear infection or, dysmenorrhea or, it's typically about diagnosing things. But, what we more focused on with bioregulatory medicine is not the symptom that you're presenting with, but the organ system. And more about why do you have the problem as to what is the problem. Mm-hmm. And so how did it become that way? I think it became that way because somewhat of the frustration of when you treat just your symptoms, however you choose to do that, the symptoms may come back, which would suggest that we haven't really addressed what the problem is. And the example I always use is a headache, and it's very common in our society, and mm-hmm. there's 101 reasons why people get headaches. But if you take a Tylenol and the headache goes away, the assumption is, is the headache due to a Tylenol deficiency, which obviously it isn't.
Yeah, well, it's a Band-Aid.
Totally a Band-Aid.
Yeah, right. Totally a Band-Aid. Okay, so, this type of study or practice of medicine is prevalent in so many other parts of the world, but why not the U.S.? Why do we have so much trouble accepting this way of practicing medicine?
Well, I think there's two, for me anyway, there's two major events, and they go back a long time, and the first was actually in 1847, which was the formation of the American Medical Association. So they've been around for a long time. And at that time, the American Medical Association was formulated with the idea that they would sort of stop quackery or stop charlatans from practicing medicine. Mm-hmm. And the main problem was the medicine in the 1840s was still about bloodletting. It was still about purgatives and cathartics and those types of things. But the medicine from Europe that had become into prevalence was more energy or homeopathic medicine. And the doctors who were using those methods in the United States actually were having a better success. So the AMA formulated, and any doctor who was not using bloodletting and cathartics and things was not allowed in their club, so to speak. So that was one aspect. And then in 1910, the Flexner Report was probably one of the defining directions that put medicine in the last 100 years in the course that it is. And Flexner worked for the Carnegie Foundation, and he went to 155 medical schools at the time, came up with a recommendation that only 31 of those schools should be open, and set down a number of rules, including you should no longer be teaching about electromagnetic therapy, you shouldn't teach phototherapy, you shouldn't teach eclectic medicine, you shouldn't teach about herbs, you shouldn't teach about diet, you shouldn't teach homeopathy or naturopathy. And that is the direction, because his belief was that it should be more scientifically based.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. I want to do more reading about that. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's funny when you start to read and you really connect the dots, you have a better understanding of how all of this has happened. But, you said diet. You devoted a whole chapter on diet. So I'm going to ask you, because so many people, I think, don't understand the importance of diet. What is the most important thing that people misunderstand about their diet?
Well, Fred, first of all, what is diet? Diet is, people tend to think, well, I go on a diet if I want to lose weight, or I'm going to go on a diet on January 1 because of this holiday season that we're presently in. But the reality is diet is simply the foods that you have chosen to eat and choose to eat on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. And it has typically been perceived that, the foods that we eat are too processed. Unfortunately, they're not as nutrient rich as they once were. So I would say in general, and the statistics back it up, that it's over 80% of the American public is deficient in at least one or more minerals. And minerals are necessary to drive the tens of thousands of reactions that we have going on every second in our body. So diet, and the best way to get minerals, and if you want to call it a diet, I usually say if you can name the food, you can eat it, which pretty much takes any type of a processed food out, because people say, well, it's bread. I said, no, it's not bread. It's made from something. What's it made from? Oh, yeah. And unless you read the label, you have no idea what it's made from.
Right. That's a great point. It really is. I was truly fascinated by Chapter 7, titled The Mouth of Medicine, Mercury, Toothpaste Toxins, and the Oral Microbiome. What do we need to know about that?
Well, what's interesting about that is that in the 1800s, dentistry and medicine sort of became very separated. Now they're starting to realize that we shouldn't separate them. We need to actually bring them back together, even though it's sort of the dental profession does their thing, the medical profession does their thing. There is a huge connection between what's going on in one's teeth and one's mouth and goes on with the rest of the body, and it's been well shown that that every tooth in your mouth connects to a different organ. From an energy, we'll call it along Chinese medicine lines of energy flow, meridians, and that type of thing. So, and unfortunately, mercury, which is the gray fillings that probably 150 million Americans have in their mouth or have had in their mouth, does contain about 48 to 50% mercury. Mercury, unfortunately, is probably one of the most toxic compounds there is for the nervous system. And while the American Dental Association has continued to say that it's not toxic when it's in the mouth, it's the only substance it's the only place you can unfortunately store mercury, because when you take mercury out, it can't be put down the city drains, it can't be put into sewers. So mercury is incredibly toxic. Unfortunately, in our toothpastes, there's a lot of additional chemicals to make people think that your teeth should be whiter or, stain resistant and that type of thing. These these chemicals many times are actually not well tolerated by the body. They themselves can be somewhat toxic. And there's now, with the oral microbiome, there's more different types of oral flora bacteria in our mouth than almost any other part of our body, except perhaps the intestinal tract. So all these things have a huge impact on somebody's health. When you look in somebody's mouth, if you looked at the person that's had a fair bit of dentistry done, it would suggest that if it affected their teeth, it actually also affected the rest of their body. You don't see it, but it's the same type of foods that affect your teeth are the same type of foods that affect every other and cause every other type of problem that people have on an ongoing basis.
Well, this was not one of my questions that I planned, but I can't help but ask it because, J.B. Handley, he wrote the book, How to End the Autism Epidemic. He is one of the endorsers of your book, wrote the comments on the back. And so I'm asking myself, bioregulatory medicine, how do you guys feel about vaccines?
Vaccines are somewhat of a sticky subject, so to speak. There are some aspects of, my personal aspect of vaccinations they definitely provide some degree of herd immunity, meaning, the entire community receives some benefit. And if the individual does not have access to what I would say is alternative or other types of health care, my personal patient population rarely have vaccines, mainly because they have so many other types of therapies on board. Mm-hmm. We do vaccines with the idea that we're trying to minimize, an individual from having, a virus or chickenpox or shingles or pneumonia or whatever. And in a large segment of the population, that probably is one of the best things that they can do. Yeah. However, if somebody is aware of their diet, if somebody is doing some type of movement, if they're not having other problems, we actually have a lot of other types of things, immune support, basic vitamins and minerals, sometimes energy things, homeopathics, et cetera, that will provide that individual with support. So the question of vaccines usually comes down to individualization. Mm-hmm. So we have a one-on-one discussion with people. So to blanketly say that all vaccines are bad is not a good comment. In my opinion, unless you individually look at the person, because, if you have somebody who's immune compromised, maybe they're having chemotherapy or, some treatment like that, mm-hmm. It may serve them who have some benefit. However, if that's not the situation going on and we are, using probiotics or perhaps vitamin C or zinc or, some other types of immune supportive remedies, that has proven, at least in my patient population, to be highly effective and highly successful.
Interesting and very well put. I can't wait to continue on with you, everyone. We're going to go to break. Dr. Dixon Tom will be back. He is the author of the book, Bioregulatory Medicine, an innovative holistic approach to self-healing. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. It's mistletoe season, and you know what that means. You've got to be chill and have minty fresh breath. You never know when you might want to kiss someone. The H Hemp Company offers their Super Breath Blast CBD spray that is my absolute favorite hemp oil product on the market. It just makes me feel happy, especially during the crazy holiday season. Its small size makes it easy to throw in your purse or pocket, so you're never without it. Give the gift of fresh breath this season with a CBD kick. 2 or 3 sprays does the trick and will leave you feeling completely refreshed. Go for it. Go to thehempcompany.com. Put 4 in your cart and use the code OLR1 to buy 3 and get 1 free. That's OLR1. Trust me, it's a really cool gift.
Hi, this is Vaughn Eaglin. As a licensed professional counselor and supervisor, I spend my career helping people cope with emotional problems. But today, I want to talk to you about nutrition. People ask me all the time for nutrition and weight loss advice, and I always find myself recommending a raw vegan protein, a food supplement called Warrior Blend by Sun Warrior. I wasn't always active and fit, In fact, I was very overweight as a child, and as a counselor, I must emphasize the importance of the mind-body connection. A clean body helps with a clean mind. Start today with Sun Warrior.